This is the story everyone's talking about, the news that dropped and seemed to confirm everything we already knew about the Caitlin Clark effect. You saw the headlines. You saw the social media buzz. In just her second WNBA season, Caitlin Clark was officially named a team captain for the 2025 WNBA All-Star game, set to take place in her home city of Indianapolis. On paper, it's a massive honor. A celebration of her star power. A recognition of the millions of new fans she's brought into the league. And on the surface, this looks like a huge win. A sign that the league is fully embracing its new megastar. But that's the surface story. That's the easy headline. We're not here for easy headlines. Because behind that celebratory announcement is a much uglier reality. One that tells a story of disrespect and, yes, betrayal. Because when you dig into the actual voting numbers, the message Caitlin Clark received from her peers is crystal clear. And it wasn't respect. It was humiliation. Tonight, we're breaking down what really happened with this all-star vote. We're showing you the numbers, the reactions, and exactly why so many people believe Clark was publicly undermined by the very players who benefit most from her presence in the league. Stick with me, because the data doesn't lie. Let's start with how WNBA All-Star voting actually works. The final results are determined by three groups: the fans, the media, and the players. Each group carries a weighted percentage in the final tally. So first, let's talk about the fans. This is where the Caitlin Clark effect is undeniable. She didn't just win the fan vote, she obliterated the record. Nearly 1.3 million fan votes. The most in All-Star voting history. A complete landslide. Fans, the people buying tickets, watching games, driving ratings, voted Caitlin Clark the number one guard in the league. No debate. No controversy. Next up, the media vote. These are analysts and journalists whose job is to evaluate performance, not hype. Even with the ups and downs of a second-year season, the media ranked Caitlin Clark as the third best guard in the entire WNBA. That's elite territory. That's respect. And then, there's the player vote. This is where the story completely falls apart. The players, the women she competes against every night, the ones sharing the court with her, ranked Caitlin Clark as the ninth best guard in the league. Let that sink in. Number 1 with fans. Number 3 with media. Number 9 with her peers. That's not a coincidence. That's a message. And we're not the only ones who saw it that way. When the voting breakdown was released, some of the most respected voices in basketball immediately called it out. ESPN legend Dick Vitale didn't hesitate. He went public and labeled it absolutely pure jealousy. His words, not ours. He said there was no basketball explanation for ranking Caitlin Clark ninth, and that one day players will fully realize what she's done for their league. And then there's Charles Barkley. You've seen the clip, it's gone viral more than once. Barkley has been saying this for over a year. He looked straight into the camera and called the situation exactly what he believes it is. He said, quote, "Y'all should be thanking that girl for the private charters, the money, and the visibility she's bringing to the WNBA." When Dick Vitale and Charles Barkley, two of the loudest, most experienced voices in basketball, are saying the same thing independently, this stops being a fan conspiracy. They're validating what millions of people can see. This isn't about on-court performance. This isn't about basketball fit. This is personal. And that's where defenders of the establishment always jump in and say, hold on, this isn't jealousy. This is just basketball evaluation. But here's the problem with that argument: performance. That's what the critics will say. They'll argue that the players see Caitlin Clark up close every night, that they understand her flaws better than fans or media ever could, and that the vote simply reflects on-court reality. And to be fair, we should acknowledge the truth: this hasn't been a flawless sophomore season for Caitlin Clark. She's faced real adversity. She went through a brutal shooting stretch, reportedly missing 22 of her last 23 three-point attempts. That's tough for any player, especially one carrying the expectations she does. And the turnovers are a legitimate concern. She's averaging 5.9 turnovers per game, most in the entire WNBA, and nearly double the rate of the next closest player. Those are real issues. No one is denying that. But here's the problem with that argument. None of it justifies a ninth-place ranking. Not even close. And the proof is already in the voting data. If Caitlin Clark's performance was truly so poor that she deserved to be ranked as the ninth best guard in the league, then the media, who saw the same shooting slump, the same turnovers, the same rough stretches, would have come to the same conclusion. But they didn't. They ranked her third. Why? Because they're looking at the full picture. They see the assists. They see the defensive attention she commands. They see the spacing she creates, the gravity she brings, and the way entire game plans revolve around stopping her. They see the winning plays that don't show up cleanly in a box score. The players saw all of that too. And they still voted her ninth. That's how we know this wasn't really about statistics. It wasn't about efficiency. It wasn't about performance. The media vote settles that debate. This was personal. So if the player vote wasn't about basketball evaluation, what was it about? To understand that, you have to zoom out, because this all-star vote doesn't exist in isolation. It's part of a much bigger pattern. A pattern we've seen play out all season long, across media narratives, schedule decisions, and now, peer recognition. This wasn't a one-off. It was a statement. And once you recognize that, the rest of the story starts to make a lot more sense. A much wider pattern of tension that seems to follow the Clark effect wherever it goes. And that tension doesn't stop at the league level, it's shown up inside the Indiana Fever's own locker room. You don't have to look any further than the recent, messy situation involving veteran forward DeWanna Borner. Borner was a marquee free agent signing. A proven name. Someone expected to be a stabilizing presence for a young, rising team. Instead, her time in Indiana was brief, turbulent, and ultimately ended with the Fever waving her outright. That doesn't happen by accident. According to multiple reports, the fit was rocky from the very beginning. Borner was reportedly unhappy with being moved into a bench role, a decision that aligned with Indiana's commitment to building the offense and identity around Caitlin Clark. That frustration escalated quickly. She allegedly requested a trade and made it clear she had no interest in continuing with the team. Think about that. A respected veteran joins a team, and within weeks, the relationship collapses because she's unwilling to accept a reduced role in a system centered on a generational superstar. That's not just a roster issue, that's a cultural one. And it reinforces the idea that the tension we see in something like the All-Star vote may simply be the public-facing version of a deeper struggle. A league-wide adjustment to a new reality. One where Caitlin Clark isn't just another good player, but the gravitational center of the sport. Now, to fully understand this situation, we have to go one level deeper. There's an unspoken factor here, an elephant in the room, that can't be ignored if we're being honest about what's happening. You cannot separate this discussion from the complex dynamics of race, visibility, and privilege within the WNBA. Let's be direct. Caitlin Clark is a white superstar in a league that is predominantly black, with estimates showing roughly 70% of players are black. Because of that, some fans and commentators have framed this situation as established black players being resentful or dismissive of a white player receiving unprecedented attention. That framing is overly simplistic and incomplete. There's another side to this conversation, and it matters. For decades, many of the league's black stars have been undermarketed, underpromoted, and undercelebrated despite elite performance. That frustration is real, documented, and openly discussed by players themselves. This isn't speculation. Las Vegas Aces star Kelsey Plum, who is white, has publicly acknowledged that she benefited from preferential treatment early in her career because she was, in her own words, straight and white. She called it absolutely a problem within the league. When you understand that history, the All-Star vote becomes more than a snub. It becomes a cultural flashpoint. It sits at the intersection of sports, media economics, and a much larger societal conversation about who gets amplified, when, and why. The disrespect is real, but the reasons behind it are layered, complicated, and tied to years of unresolved tension. Now, fast forward to Caitlin Clark herself. After missing a few games, she finally addressed the media following the All-Star captain announcement. She received over 1.2 million fan votes, an extraordinary number by any standard. She spoke alongside head coach Stephanie White, And what stood out wasn't what she said, it was what she didn't say. Asked about being named captain, she called it a cool honor. Asked about selecting teammates, she responded simply, "Obviously I want my teammates on my team. Why wouldn't I?" Calm. Professional. Focused. And remember, she already knew her peers had ranked her 9th. This wasn't just a routine press moment. It was a conscious choice. She refused to take the bait. She didn't acknowledge the controversy. She didn't air grievances. She didn't fuel drama. Instead, she centered the moment on her city, her teammates, and the opportunity itself. That's leadership. While others chose pettiness, she chose restraint. And in doing so, she made the snub look smaller without ever calling it out directly. That reaction, measured, controlled, forward-looking, is more powerful than any angry quote ever could be. So where does this leave us? This All-Star vote isn't just about rankings. It's a snapshot of a league at a crossroads. The WNBA is facing a paradox it hasn't fully resolved yet. Its single greatest engine for growth, Caitlin Clark, is also the catalyst for its most challenging internal reckoning. On one side, the Clark effect is driving unprecedented economic momentum. Record TV ratings, sold-out arenas, expanded visibility, and chartered flights for every team. That growth will directly influence the next collective bargaining agreement, with higher salaries and improved conditions for everyone. On the other side, there is clear resistance from parts of the player base, resistance that surfaced unmistakably in that 9th place vote. That tension isn't going away. It's a cultural fault line the league will eventually have to confront head-on. Because growth without alignment creates friction. And how the WNBA chooses to navigate this moment will determine whether the Clark era becomes a true turning point, or just another missed opportunity layered with unresolved resentment. Fault line for the WNBA. And make no mistake, the league's future depends on how it navigates this moment. This is the central challenge. How do you elevate a once-in-a-generation superstar without making the veteran players who built the league feel sidelined or erased? How do you grow the game aggressively while still honoring its history? Every decision now, marketing, scheduling, media coverage, even officiating, is being viewed through this exact lens. That's why this isn't just sports drama anymore. This is a battle over identity, over direction, over what the WNBA wants to be moving forward. And we're watching it happen in real time. But that's our breakdown. Now we want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell us what you think. Was the Players' All-Star vote a fair reflection of Caitlin Clark's on-court performance? Or was it, as Dick Vitale put it, pure jealousy? If you appreciate deep dives that go beyond surface-level headlines, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. And if you know someone who needs to understand the real story behind this controversy, share this with them. Because this conversation isn't going away, and neither is the impact of Caitlin Clark on the future of the WNBA.